please. The Honourable, the member for Stephenville-Port.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and it's a pleasure to get up and speak for the first time, other than a member statement just last week, and speak to the importance of the interim supply bill. Madam Chair, first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge, I guess, a great gratitude and thanks to the people of Stephenville-Port who supported me in becoming the newest member for the district. Just 70 years ago, actually, my grandfather sat in the National Convention, the very first representative of the Port district, which is now known as Stephenville-Port. So 70 years ago, my grandfather had this role, and I'm proud to now take it on myself. In speaking to the interim supply bill, I guess, very necessary, of course. We have to administer funds for the ongoing efforts of government with respect to supplying programs and services. I find it quite interesting there, just Tuesday when we were debating this bill, a couple of members opposite, there was some acknowledgement of working together. I believe the member for Mount Pearl Southlands acknowledged the member for Mount Pearl North, and there was a recognition of working together. And of course, we're all in this together, and we're all very much well aware of that. And you can see the love right now between the two members. There you go. Well, I'm quite happy to be here and to work together with all of my colleagues. I must say, representing the West Coast and the West Coast area, we have a great team of individuals. The member for Bay of Islands, St. George's Humber, my colleague, Mr. Reid. We have the member for Burgeo-Lapoil, St. Barb, Lanson Meadows, and as well as the Honourable Premier as well, all representing the West Coast. And I'm very proud to be a part of that team, very proud to work with these individuals. Not only have they given me much advice and wisdom in the months leading up to the election and so on, and continuing to do so, but it's great to work alongside with them in representing the great West Coast. When we talk about the interim supply bill, we're talking about, again, keeping the funds going. One of the things I find quite troubling is the references from the members opposite about the government renewal initiative. They're constantly referring to this fact that there's this 15-month road tour and this 15-month plan and so on and so forth. Well, I just find that really troubling that they keep touting that as a reason that we're not doing something. Well, we're actually doing everything we can, and we're reaching out to all the people of the province for their input right now. The Minister of Finance referenced just yesterday we've had up to 1,800 unique ideas alone on our dialogue app. So I think the Government Renewal Initiative is very important. It's, again, very interesting. The members opposite, suddenly the electorate has put them opposite, and now they have all the answers. They suddenly have all the answers, and they're not quite sure why we're doing this Government Renewal Initiative. Well, if they didn't leave us with just a deficit, we probably wouldn't have to go to a Government Renewal Initiative to seek input. The member yesterday for St. John's East Kitty Vitty spoke about the fact that we're all elected. And we're all elected to show leadership, and that's why the public, takes care of our paychecks. We're all elected to show leadership. And what leadership can we show? She went further to reference the fact that, health care is important and education is important, and no one's going to argue that health care and education are important services. I don't think we'd get any argument from any one of the 40 members in this room today that those two services are important. And when you refer to the fact that we're now looking at sweeping cuts of 30% across the board, well, the reality is we're not looking at sweeping cuts of 30% across the board. I don't know how long they can continue to reference that. In fact, the idea was put forth from the Minister of Finance, specifically suggesting that departments get creative in looking if they had to cut 30%. There was no specific reference to cutting 30% across the board. This was merely an exercise in looking at ways in which we can save money. And in doing so, we're asking all departments to be creative in looking at that. There was no suggestion of sweeping cuts of 30% across the board. It's quite funny when you talk about money. One thing that sticks out to me in my district in particular, and for members who would have been paying attention to the media, we had an oil leak in Port Bay. Very, very sensitive issue. We had oil leaking from a cracked-off pipe that was in the ground for years and years and years, and the government of the day couldn't really determine who had that oil lease and who had the ownership of that well. And at that time, I believe it was in June, that the then Minister of Environment wouldn't take the time to come to Port-au-Port to see it. Around the same time, they happened to send the Minister of Transportation and Works to Romania to christen a ferry. It's just troubling for me as a member for Stephenville-Port with a very sensitive issue in my district with respect to environmental disaster. We couldn't send a Minister of Environment over to look at some oil in Port-au-Port Bay, but we had no trouble spending $10,000 to send someone to Romania to christen a ferry that didn't work anyway. There you go. Again, very troubling when you talk about waste of money. And you know, a member just then for Conception Bay South just acknowledged that it's always good to see what some of the good work is in the district, and there's always a new road and this sort of thing. Well, there's always a new road, and there's always going to be a road that needs to have work done on that road. Well, I'm very proud to sit here with my colleagues and our Minister of Transportation and Works to acknowledge that we have a multi-year infrastructure plan in place. The plan is in place to take the politics out of pavement and to take the politics out of asphalt. So laying out a plan is what's important, and it's what's important to the people when you talk about being financially responsible and acknowledging that every district has work to be done and that we need to do so on a priority basis. You know, the member for CBS also just mentioned that there's not been a government that has been elected that is not wasting money. And for the last number of days, we've heard in question period from members opposite with respect to questioning the Minister of Finance over the savings of $100 million. Again, troubling that it takes 3 days in a row to ask the same questions around $100 million when we're over here tackling a $2 billion deficit. I really find it hard to fathom how they can get up and ask these questions knowing and full well knowing that they had every responsibility and every effort to ensure that we weren't left in this position. And I just look at, they're suggesting that we're not showing leadership and we haven't done things to date. Well, since taking office on November 30th, we've done numerous things. We've done numerous things to show leadership to the people of this province. Our Premier acknowledged in December and put out in the public eye the financial update and reflecting exactly where the circumstances were at the province after having sent letters to the former Premier in September of the same year asking for a current fiscal update. So here we are asking for information on where the province stands today. We're not getting any responses, and then within 3 weeks of being elected, we're laying it out there for everyone to see. Secondly, what we've done as a government to show leadership, to save money, we've eliminated the funds for the parliamentary secretaries and parliamentary assistants. We've done that measure. We've also reduced and taken back some of their stances on taking the pensions and the overpayments back to our seniors. I mean, how terrible is it? You're over there talking about wasting money, and then we're going to go turn around and get it on the backs of our seniors of our province. I mean, it's just unbelievable to think that that was even a thought. Very easy to just look and say, you know what, some overpayments were made. How can you go to anyone who's a senior in this province, who's lived and worked their entire life and paid taxes, and now go back and say, well, you've had an overpayment, we need to get a few dollars back from you? It's just unfathomable. Again, in acknowledging our seniors, we've made that effort. We've also reduced the funds from the parliamentary secretary positions as well. And of course, this has to be a long-term plan. And the Minister of Finance has acknowledged that there's short-term efforts, there's medium-term, and there's long-term as well. And the very first effort is going to be when we present our budget 2016. And this is something that we were doing during our government renewal initiative in consultation with all of the public of the province to receive their input. It's not simply just one of these Office of Public Engagement sessions that the members opposite used to hold where you'd push a clicker and push a button and rank your ideas. There's no such thing as ranking your ideas here. We're open to receiving all ideas as a part of being an open, transparent, and accountable government. In concluding, and I know the time is getting short there, again, the interim supply bill, again, a very necessary initiative. We need to keep the programs and services going for the residents of the province. It's something that's very important. We all know that this is just a necessary means right now to approve the interim supply bill. But of course, moving forward, our budget 2016 will outline a plan moving forward for the medium, short, and long-term goals of this province. I'd like to thank you, Madam Chair, for giving me the opportunity to speak today, and thank you very much.